Hey everybody, welcome to News by Muse. We are back. It's been a long week, but we're ending the week with a great PBS. The show, Odd Hours, No Pay, Cool Hat, really talking about volunteer firefighters, volunteer EMTs, and what people do for others here in their community. What was it about making this series? We have the directors, Gary Matoso, Cameron Zohoori. Why was it so important to tell this story?
Well, the number of calls to volunteer firefighters around the country has just been increasing over the past decades, and the number of volunteers has been going down. So, from the beginning, the goal of the film was hopefully to raise awareness of that, because a lot of people also just don't realize how many firefighters around our country are volunteers. It's like two-thirds of all firefighters, and more than three-quarters of the area of the country are protected by volunteers. So there's a huge need. It's the vast majority of the country, and there's a real need for people to step up. So that was kind of always the genesis of it. But then the stories are just amazing of the people who are stepping up to do this. So there's just such a rich, depth of stories and range of stories across the country to share. So it was kind of a two-part thing.
Mhm. And that's one thing I love about this is that it really dives into it. It really tells a great story. I mean, I always say the style of documentary, the style of taking a look is very journalistic. So you really do get to see and really get to know the people's lives and what they go through. How important was it to not only show them show the work ethic, but also show the family side as well?
Especially with volunteer firefighters, I think it was essential to try to show their personal life because most of their life is their personal life or their professional life. That's not being a volunteer firefighter. And I think a big part of the film was also showing that, anybody can really be a volunteer firefighter. I think we have a lot of preconceptions around who can be a volunteer firefighter, but our stories cover everything from literally teenagers up to a 73-year-old woman who's an EMT. So I think just kind of, yeah, we wanted people to be able to relate to the different stories and see themselves and, see the possibility of how they might themselves want to be a volunteer firefighter. So we had a huge casting we put out a submission call for stories, and we had like over 800 submissions that came in across the country, so we had a lot to work with, and so we kind of sifted through those, and Louise Collette, who was our casting director, really led the charge on that, and we were able to kind of narrow it down. It was difficult, but we narrowed it down to 8 stories around the country, but we really wanted to show different parts of the country, different types of services that the volunteer fire service provides to different communities, kind of based on the needs of the community, and then, different types of people
Mhm.
as
I can
well.
only imagine going through all that and trying to figure out 'cause I'm sure there's so many that have some interesting stories, but to cut that down, like you said, it had to be very difficult because it's like you have you have to know where you want to go with it, but yet you still want like how many of them that were so close to
Oh,
making this,
oh
and you
yeah,
gotta say we can't. This is going to be a 24-hour type of long story.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could have been much longer just with the ones that we did focus on, but there were so many that were kind of very close or really compelling stories that we probably could have picked just as easily as the ones that we did pick. But, it was kind of a left brain, right brain kind of decision making thing where part of it is just like what's your immediate reaction to a story when you hear about it and what feels like really compelling. But then there was also at the same time this kind of more, slightly more analytical approach of like, okay, we want to like we looked at looking at the map. Where are these stories? Are we covering the country? What kind of places are we going to? What kind of people are we talking to in each of those places? And making sure we really were showing that breadth of people and places like Gary was talking about and showcasing that. But in a lot of those cases where it was kind of like between these two, it does come down to kind of just gut feeling and what feels like the most compelling story or the person that you think will be really interesting to follow.
Yeah. And that's the one thing that I like is that it's coming out at a good time after we've had two hurricanes, fires on the West Coast. Uh, a lot of natural disasters that have been occurring here in the United States, and to see these volunteer firefighters and what they go through, I think it's important to see to for the average American who doesn't get to see that all the time. Unless you live in these areas, do you really experience how vital it is for these volunteers to be there? How important was it to show during national disasters all the work, and even they put their bodies and their lives on the line to help the fellow community?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was important just to show. I think a lot of people think firefighters, they think fighting fires,
Yeah.
logically, but that was really, it's probably like the smallest part of what they do. I mean, people will call their fire department for anything, and it's rescues, it's accidents, like in small farming communities. There's terrible kind of farm accidents and things like that they deal with. Obviously, they do deal with fires as well, but as you point out, all the natural disasters, and so they pretty much, whatever the community needs, they're there to support them and help them. And one of the stories we did was in Virginia. That was they focus on rescuing large animals that fall into ditches or swimming pools, and because it's a horse community that this department was in, and so that's something their community needed, and it's something they've learned how to do over time, and to serve their community. I'd say the other thing you said, it's timely because of the disasters and everything. I think the other thing for us is, we're also at a fairly divisive moment in our country's history, and this film, I think, rises above all of that. This just really is showing, it's focusing on neighbors helping their neighbors, whether it's a red state or a blue state or a purple state. It's just people helping each other and working together. And I think for us, that was something we walked away with feeling just a little bit better about things and hopeful, and, realizing that, people, just want to help their neighbors.
Yeah.
I think the
Actually,
thing I would just add to that is like, we did, like you're saying, the sacrifice is huge. It's people putting on their lives on the line to help each other, and we wanted to honor that. But it was also at the same time like wanting to show that there's so many roles that people can play, and there's so many things you can do to help and to volunteer. And not every role has to be the person just suiting up and busting down doors and putting out fires. That there's all these other ways that people can help, and that there's so much that it brings to those individuals and to their lives. There's so much they get from it too, by kind of joining your local department, and you gain a second family. So many of them, going back to that family piece of it, it becomes a part of their personal lives and their family lives, and their families get involved, and it's their second family and a new kind of sense of camaraderie and connections, and it really just adds so much richness to their lives. So I think we wanted to make sure we were showing that side of it too.
yeah. Actually, Gary, I was actually going to touch upon that with the election being 2 weeks away, and we're seeing all this divisiveness, and I'm sure people from other countries are looking like we're all going after each other and killing each other. But I think that's where what you've done and it coming out right now is so important as well, to show, to remind people this country has always been about helping each other. And that's how we've succeeded and we've been able to survive all these years. Uh, I know it was unintentional because you made this a while back, but how do you guys feel that it's coming out at this time where the election is starting to heat up even more than ever, and to be able to say that I saw your work and it made me feel hopeful again, and I know a lot of people are going to be saying that after they watch this.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great feeling. Again, I think it's, for me, one of the overriding feelings I had after the project. Like I said, I didn't think we didn't go into the project as that being necessarily a goal, but it was something we kind of walked away from the story, just like, and it just, from our just the film itself, but just our personal experiences of traveling around the country and being in these communities and connecting with people, and we were all over the place, and so I think, for me, it's very satisfying that we've, from the experience, from the personal experience of making the film, but also that it is coming out, and it's coming out at this time as well.
I think it was such a good reminder of just, that there are other other things that define people's lives and that are actually more important than the things that are dividing us right now. When you have that natural disaster or just something small, when you've fallen and you get up, you can't help yourself, older individual or something like that. Like in those moments, all that matters is that there's someone there to help you, and you don't care who that person is. You don't care what their background is. You don't care what their political beliefs are. It does rise above that. And I think just that chance to like you were saying, travel around and see how for so many people there are way more important things and things they've chosen as being central to their lives and more important to their identity than politics or something else. And there's really thousands and thousands of people like that across the country, and it was a great reminder of that.
Almost 700,000 people.
Almost 700,000, yeah. Yeah, and many more beyond that, but yeah, it's a great reminder, that there's a lot more to our lives and to the ways that we can interact, that does transcend that.
Exactly. And one thing I gotta ask, what does it feel like to have this be on PBS? I mean, I know you made the festival circuit in the past. We had talked, I think it was about a year or 2 years ago,
Yeah,
about this, and to have it now on PBS where we're going to get a wider audience, for it to be on there. I've checked out the PBS app because I've been following a lot of the PBS shows that have been going on right now, and they're really good shows. And your documentary being a part of it, that has to be something special for you guys, because PBS does bring a quality that's different than a lot of other streaming platforms, different networks, different television platforms.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, the goal for the project was to raise awareness around volunteer firefighters and get it in front of as many people as possible. And when you're making a film, you don't necessarily have a guarantee of what platforms it's going to eventually be on. So one of the things that we did do with the film is I think the biggest thing is we had these organize our subgenre, our distribution partner organize these community screenings around the country, and I think we did almost 300 community screenings at local fire departments. So very community-based approach to it. But I mean, having the power and the reach and kind of the credibility of PBS, having these air on PBS is I think it's a dream for us, and we're just really thrilled that it's going to get out, on this much larger, platform to I forget what's the total reach, but it's like, I think 84% of the country, will have access to the film now. Yeah.
Before I let you go, I gotta definitely ask, new projects. Are you working on something? Do you have some ideas on what you want to do next now that this is hitting television? I'm sure you've been working on what's next. If you could talk about it. Please talk about
yeah. We've got a couple other projects in the works that are kind of in the development phases that we're getting off the ground. Yeah, I won't share too much details, but one of them. So in a previous life, I studied neuroscience in college, and we actually have a project in the works that's actually based around brain science and brain mapping the brain. And some really interesting stuff that's going on there. So very different topic than volunteer firefighting, but that's kind of one of the really fun things about this job and what we do is kind of jumping from really, one really different topic to another.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Gary, Cameron, thank you so much for stopping with us again. It's great to revisit, especially as you see the progression of a piece of work and where it's going and how the legs that it eventually has, and it reaches more people, touches more people's lives. And thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Love to see this journey, and we look forward to seeing more from you very, very soon.
All right.
Thank you so much, Michael. Really
And
appreciate it.
before I let you go, when we got to do the sales pitch before this ends, how can people watch this?
Yes. So it'll be airing. The big date is October 28th across the country, but there's a lot of other air dates on PBS stations. So go to oddhoursfilm.com, has the full listing of that, or check your local PBS station and other public television stations to find those air dates.
Awesome. Thank you so much.